What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Inside Inter Miami. I am your host, Andre Fernandez, joined as always by my co host, Michelle Kaufman, our Inter Miami beat writer. We are back from the FIFA international break, and Inter Miami was back with another great performance. And guess who else was back, everybody? Lionel Messi. That's right. Number 10, back on the field. Didn't start the game, but came in and immediately, and I mean immediately, I could tell you because I was there in the press box subbing in for Michelle this weekend. That man comes in and does not take long for him to do something that affects the game. We saw it. Inter Miami with a victory, a key victory that could end up being a crucial one down the road against the Philadelphia team that they're battling in the Eastern Conference standings. Team remains unbeaten under Javier Mascherano. We'll talk a little bit about what's coming up next for this squad as they continue in the Champions Cup and then face their next MLS opponent this coming Sunday. We'll look at Messi's return that we spoke of a second ago, as well as Drake Callender, pressed into service, but long-awaited return for him coming off of injury. We'll talk about what happened late in the game against Philadelphia. Also, Robert Taylor coming off an injury made a huge impact early on. And we'll look at another little bit of a negative trend with this team, and that's too many yellow cards. They had too many red cards early. Now it's a bunch of yellow cards. This team being very physical, getting called a lot for a lot of fouls, a lot of things. But we'll talk a little bit about those aspects and also a new signing for this team, Ecuadorian 18-year-old Alan Obondo. We'll see what kind of impact, Michelle will talk about what kind of impact this kid could make for this squad. The transfer window, we know, closes April 23rd. This team still could make more moves in the next 3 weeks. But let's start with this past Saturday night. It was a packed house, as usual, at Chase Stadium, and Robert Taylor got things started, and Lionel Messi, second half, immediately comes in, not even 2 minutes later, scores what ended up being a key goal before they had to hold them off because Philly almost took that one down the stretch, or at least forced a draw, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, he's really, how many ways can we say, how many ways are there to say Lionel Messi is that man can play. That man is a serious soccer player. I mean, the impact that he has, not only just on the energy. I wasn't at the game. I happened to have had a wedding that I had to attend this past week, but I did watch on TV after some, highlights, and I watched much of it. And Andre filled in and was there live. Um, first of all, just when he stands up from the bench and is getting ready to go into a game, the whole energy of the building completely changes. The fans and everybody, the fans, everyone, the media starts to pay more attention. The fans, and and then the players, everybody just lifts when he's on the field. And then yeah, he stepped on the field in the 55th minute, and not even 2 minutes later, in the 57th minute, he scores. And he scores a beautiful goal. It really was a nice goal, connecting once again with Luis Suarez. They have that telepathy. They have ESP. They know what's going on in each other's brains. And and he scored another goal from a difficult angle that I have to say most people would not have scored that goal. He makes it look easy. He's one of those, that's really the sign. It's like Roger Federer in tennis. The real greats of any sport, they make it look easy what they do. And Lionel Messi makes it look easy.
Well, he makes goalies look overmatched, which it's funny because it doesn't at first. You see him dribbling, and you're like, okay, it looks like a standard play. And then all of a sudden, the shot comes in, and the goalie's just like, oh, flailing
Yeah.
for his life and completely. And like you said, I got a chance to really see that, in person. The second he comes out for warmups and starts doing the little run back and forth, behind his own goal over here, you see all you see is this. You see phones, all the phones, like this, just the entire row back there. And then even in the media, the
Yeah,
guy
no one's
sitting
even
next to me.
watching the game. At that
No,
point, no one is watching the game, and everyone is
right.
watching the warm-ups at the corner flag.
Yeah. It's
That's
the
where
worst.
everyone has their cameras. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the worst time for somebody to get a highlight. If somebody scores during those couple of minutes, forget it. Like it's gonna be like, oh wait, really? The guy next to me for I don't remember what media outlet he was. The second that happened, it was like boom, he sticks out the camera and he's like doing this the whole time, and I'm like, all right, this here you go.
Yeah,
This is it right here.
it's still all about Messi. It's all about, before every game when I write my preview stories, you know, the story before every game is Messi going to play? Yes or no? Is Messi going to start? Yes or no? How is Messi? Is he injured? Is he healthy? Is he going to play? What's he going to do? The man is still the focal point of of the soccer universe and definitely of the Inter Miami and MLS universe. I mean, he's an icon, and I want to throw in here that I was covering the Miami Open tennis the last 2 weeks, and one of the biggest moments of that tennis tournament was when Messi showed up with
Right,
Antonella, with his wife and the three boys, to see Novak Djokovic play.
right.
That place, everybody knew where he was, just like we're saying that everyone knows when he goes to the corner flag. He
Yeah.
was sitting underneath an awning with his family. There were 14,000 other people there. The minute they showed him on the screen and everyone knew that Messi was there, everyone's heads turned. Everybody wanted to try to get a picture of Messi sitting there watching tennis. I mean, he's just such a big deal. And then after um, Djokovic met him in the locker room after they exchanged shirts. He got a pink number 10, and Djokovic gave him his shirt signed. It said "Para la familia Messi con cariño," with love. And then the other players were all trying to meet him, trying to say hello, trying to shake his hand. The guy who ended up winning the tournament said that he won the next match, his semifinal, because he shook Messi's hand and he didn't wash his hand after. Mensick said, I shook his hand and then I didn't wash it. These are world-class athletes. Forget about regular
Yeah,
fans being in
it's so
awe of
funny.
him. We're talking about world-class athletes. Everyone is in awe of this man.
He still had some of his grace on his hand there, and he's like, I can't scrub this off. It needs to stay. It needs to go to my racket right here to help me win. But
And it did. He
Master,
served 25 aces in that match. That kid scored 25. He had 25 aces in that match. And he said the reason was that Messi had touched that hand that he was using for the racket. So I mean,
bless the
the
racket.
guy has a magic touch. He has a magic touch.
It's amazing. Javier Mascherano, who we're gonna show you a clip momentarily here, talking about not just Messi's return, but also Drake Callender's return. But real quick, I didn't film this one, but Mascherano was asked by someone about the age old question, Messi or Ronaldo, and of course he said Messi. But the reason he gave for it was interesting. That he says not only do people marvel at the way he can score, the way he can pass, all of that, but it's the way he defends too. And that's coming from Mascherano, his former teammate, who obviously we know is a big, defensive mind. And he said the guy can play defense with anyone, like just as good as anyone. And he said that's a rare combo that's never been seen, and that's what makes him the greatest of all time. So I thought even then, I thought that was a good answer to a question that might seem an obvious one, that he's going to obviously say Messi, but why he said it was the interesting part. So
Very interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you never think of him as a defender because, he's not running around as much, but within his area, he fends people off within his
right.
area.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that was
Yeah,
the whole thing.
interesting. Very and
So,
coming from Mascherano, yes, that means something.
yeah, for sure. So before we show you the clip, just to fill you in if you missed it on Saturday, Oscar Ustadi was cramping up big time. Even in the first half, he got some treatment, stayed in the game, but by the 83rd minute, no podía más, like we say, and it was cramping up too much. He had to come out. Drake Callender's been sitting there waiting his turn, coming back from the adductor injury. He got his chance. He got in there. Wasn't challenged massively, but had a few moments where he did have to come in, stop a couple balls and this and that. So he kind of shook the rust off, and they held off Philadelphia for the 2-1 win. So that was good to see because, like we said before, Michelle, Drake's going to have to play a part in this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've been waiting. I had asked Mascherano on Friday, when are we going to see Drake? When are we going to see him? Turned out we saw him Saturday. But he said, we have to find the right time for him to come in because he is going to be he has been and a very important part of this team for 3 years, and we're going to need him. It's a very long season, as we've been talking about. And we saw right away the next day Ustari gets hurt and it was Drake on the bench ready to come in, and I'm very glad to see him. He's a really, really wonderful person. He was a captain of this team for 3 years and a co-captain with Messi. He's really an upstanding human being, and it's really nice to see him get back on the field.
Yeah, and so Miami now with their game coming up Wednesday night, late Wednesday night on the East Coast against LAFC, quarterfinals of the Champions Cup. It'll be interesting to see, can Oscar go again, or does he turn to Drake? But here's what Javier Mascherano said about Drake's return and Messi, of course, after the game.
Sí, obviamente que, bueno, queríamos que Leo tenga minutos. La idea era que pueda entrar 35 minutos. Bueno, hoy con el adicional ha jugado un poquito más, pero se ha sentido muy bien. Y bueno, no queríamos arriesgarlo de entrada, porque bueno, pensábamos que quizás hacerle jugar todo el partido podíamos correr algún riesgo. Por suerte terminó bien y nos pone muy contentos. Y con Drake, más allá que tuvo que entrar por la molestia de Oscar, contento, creo que ha respondido muy bien. Sabemos que es un jugador muy importante dentro de la institución, lleva muchos años, ha conseguido logros importantes y bueno, la realidad que me pone contento que haya podido sumar los primeros minutos.
Yeah, he's saying there, for those who don't speak Spanish, that, they really wanted him to play 30, 35, 40 minutes. And they didn't want to take a risk of putting him in as a starter, because the thing is, when Messi starts, he likes to play the whole game. He does not like to come out. So when you're the coach of Messi, you're not going to yank him out of a game. It just that's not how he likes to play. When he's in, he likes to play to the end. So he said we wanted him to play, but we didn't want to risk him for a whole game. And as it turned out, he got to play quite a bit of minutes, because there were, I think, 9 minutes of added time or something.
Yeah,
so he did get to play quite a bit. He got to play quite a bit of time, and that he felt good. That he felt good after the match, and that they were hoping that he would recover and feel well, for the next match. Which, by the way, he did travel to LA. I'll just state for the record, for anyone wondering, he did go. There's pictures of him. He was getting on the airplane, so he went to LA. He's in Los Angeles as we record this podcast. And then Drake, he said, Drake is somebody that we're very happy that he was able to come in. He looked good, and that, he's, again, someone who is a very important player on this team, and we're going to need him for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and that good to know that for Messi, because a lot of people were speculating coming off, and a lot of it was Javier Mascherano was like, look, at this point, it's like every time he plays, we got to see how he bounces back, the next day, that sort of thing. So it sounds like he did. If he's getting on the plane, he's going out there, with the team for this big contest out in LA. The first of two legs of this Champions Cup quarterfinal, which 11:30, really late, like I said before, on the East Coast.
Yeah, I was going to say, the Café Bustelo is one of the sponsors of Inter Miami. I was thinking, get yourself a little cafecito of Café Bustelo for this one, because the match starts at 11:30 p.m. Eastern time on FS1. It's at 8:30 p.m. in LA, but 11:30 p.m. Eastern time. Get yourself some Café Bustelo. One thing I wanted to throw in there before we move on, as we're still staying on this last game, the yellow cards. Tell me about in stoppage time. Once again, these guys, and I got to say, it's usually the same people. It's the same trio arguing in stoppage time. Tell me what happened there.
It was three different ones where, again, it's just, fouls, or they're not getting the calls, they're getting called on them, and then they get into little arguments with the referees, and it seems like this team, like, it's hard to say, like, maybe they're thinking that, I don't know if they think that maybe the referees have it against them or something, but it's like they're getting all these like dicey calls, and to see it happen it was from like the start of stoppage to about the 94th, 95th minute. And it got a little, to the point where the game was in jeopardy. A game that looked like it was sealed up with about 80 or so minutes left when Philly struck. It was like all of a sudden, like, are they going to let this slip away? Are they going to lose 2 points here at the very least, and this end up in a draw? So we saw the ongoing problem they had with red cards early on, and getting guys suspended after that. So it makes you wonder.
I looked it up. By the way, I looked up the MLS stats. Are you ready? I don't think you'll be surprised, but get ready for this is a stat that I don't think they would be very proud of. Inter Miami, yes, they're in first place. They're also in first place in yellow cards in the league with 18 yellows over 5 games, 18 yellows and 3 red cards. Okay. 3 red cards leads the league. There are, by the way, look, there are 18 teams that don't even have a single red card.
I was going to say
teams don't have a single one. Miami has 3 already reds, 3 ejections already, and 18 yellows over 5 games. So they
who's the
lead
next
the league
highest?
in yellows and reds.
Who's the next highest? I wonder how big the gap is. Who's
Yeah,
the next highest?
it's pretty big. It's a pretty big gap. DC United,
Okay.
I think, may be next. But yeah, 18 yellows leads the league. 3 reds also leads the league. That is something you don't really want to be leading the league in. So yeah, this team, I do think part of it is that they think that everybody's against them, and they're an argumentative group. And so far, it hasn't cost them a game. They are in first place. They're undefeated, like we said, through 9 games across all games. 9 games they have not lost.
They didn't even lose in
Javier
preseason.
Mascherano.
They didn't even lose in preseason,
And they didn't
right?
lose in preseason either. I have to say, Javier Mascherano, props to him. He's done a very, very good job. The team is undefeated. They also lead the league. Here's one that they are probably proud of. They lead the league in goal differential, which is not something last year was a problem with them. This year they have 11 goals that they've scored and they've allowed 5. So they're +6 goal differential,
Yeah.
which means their defense is playing much better this year.
Yeah, they can win low scoring games as well as the ones where they get the back of the net a lot. We saw it in the Charlotte game when they were, down a player for more than a half and still found a way, a 1-0 win there. That was a perfect example of that.
Yeah, I think they were down a man for like 70 plus minutes, and they still managed to. Yeah, so they really, I mean, they have definitely shored up their defense. And they're leading, like I said, they lead the league in a lot of categories. But the yellow cards and reds, that's not. I would be a little bit concerned about that.
Yeah, someone we don't want to forget is Robert Taylor, because without Robert Taylor, remember, his goal at the beginning is what set the foundation for that victory. That everybody talks about how Messi came in and all that, and fine, it ended up being the game-winning goal. But Robert Taylor's score was huge in the 23rd minute, and what a beautiful feed from Alba. That cross, that long cross to get it ahead of the defense to him, and then the little, the toquecito, like they say, the one touch there to a wide open Taylor. Robert Taylor also drew a lot of praise post game just for his ability to do that, and we saw it last year, in the early going. So
yes, Robert Taylor is very, very skilled. He actually is he was like a competitive also in like dribbling and all kinds of like soccer tricks. He's really nifty with the ball. I mean, he's very, very skilled on the ball. And last year he had a great year, and he has shown moments of brilliance. He really has. And he is sort of, with all of the talent on this team and the new guys they brought in. And I think, Dario Allende was out for the last game, and that allowed Taylor to move up the ladder one little notch, I think, because Allende had been playing so well as well, and they brought him in. So, Robert Taylor, don't forget Robert Taylor. The guy is very skilled. He's very talented. He was on the Finnish national team. I mean, this is a really, really valuable player that they have. And there's so many players on this team that you sometimes forget about somebody like Robert Taylor, who's sitting there on the bench waiting to come in. So it was nice again to see. It was nice to see him come in, and it was nice to see Drake come in that last game. 2 guys that have been sitting on the bench itching to play, and they both were able to play, and that was a good thing to see.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's look ahead to this LAFC set of 2 games that we keep talking about, the quarterfinal round now of the Champions Cup. It's besides Miami and LAFC, you've got the Vancouver Whitecaps and Pumas. You've got Tigres taking on LA Galaxy, and America and Cruz Azul. That's the remainder of this bracket right now. We're in the final 8, in the Elite 8, I guess you could call it.
The Elite 8.
Give a little March Madness feel there. But this matchup, obviously, LAFC, one of the better squads in MLS. So this is going to be a challenge for this team the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, LAFC has struggled a little this season. They're kind of a middle of the pack right now in the West, but it is LAFC. It's a big glamour
Right.
team. They have reached the final of the Champions Cup the two other times in 2020 and 2023. They did reach the final of the Champions Cup. This is a team that has history with this tournament. It's a team that draws huge, very boisterous crowds.
Yeah.
They have a lot of Mexican fans. The Mexican fans are really into this tournament because there are Mexican teams in the tournament. Like you said, there's Tigres, there's Club America, and there's Cruz Azul.
Right.
So the Mexican fans in Los Angeles area are very in tune with what's going on. If there may be soccer fans in this country who don't know that much about CONCACAF Champions Cup, believe me, the fans in the LA area know about CONCACAF Champions Cup because they're following those Mexican teams as well. So this is a really big deal for them. It's a glamour team where movie stars come out to watch their, Will Ferrell is one of the owners and Magic Johnson is one of the owners, and movie stars come out like
Magic. I feel like Magic
my
has a
mom's
stake.
favorite movies, huh?
Oh, no, sorry. I was saying Magic has a stake in like every LA team. It almost seems the Dodgers.
Yes,
them.
he does. He does. But Will Ferrell and Magic Johnson and so it's kind of a celebrity team. My mom's favorite actor, Jaime Camil, who's a Mexican actor. He shows up to all the games. So, it's a game that when Miami plays out there in Los Angeles, a lot of stars show up. So you're gonna expect to see celebrities in the box there, in the luxury boxes watching this match. So the stakes are going to be high. A lot of movie stars from LA come out to see Messi play. And, David Beckham has history in LA as well, although it was the Galaxy. So Miami against LA, that is a glamour game. No matter what the standings say for LAFC, believe me, they're going to be hyped for this game. The fans are going to be hyped for this game, and it's a really big deal. It's going to be a big game, and 11:30 p.m. Get your Café Bustelo and sit and watch this one because it's going to be entertaining. I think it's going to be very entertaining. And Olivier Giroud, the French player, who is a big star, he has not scored as many goals as maybe people thought he would, although he's not really that much of a scorer, more of a facilitator, but he's on that team. He's been injured, though. I'm not sure what his status is going to be for this game, but they have Bouanga. Bouanga is one of the top scorers in the league. Last year was in the, Golden Boot race, Bouanga. So that's somebody to watch out for. And they're a very good team, a very capable team, and they've got the celebrity status just like Miami. So expect the stars to come out for this game.
And in the before times, now it seems like BC, before Messi, didn't Miami start the season at LAFC, I think last year, the year before, if memory serves, wasn't that? So they've seen that. Some of them have seen that environment, haven't they?
Yeah. Well, the very
many
first
are left,
game.
but yeah.
Right. Well, Drake Callender would have been.
Drake Callender, it does. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. They played out at LAFC. I went to that game. That was.
I was going to say. I remember that was the opener. It
was a really big deal. It was the opener. Robbie Robinson was on the team back then. I mean, that was a very different team.
That's what I say in the before times.
Pizarro. But yeah, the atmosphere out there is incredible. Their fans. Their end zone fans, like their La Familia that we have here, their fans over there are amazing. They make the incredible tifos, the banners, the big giant banners that they pull over the whole section. They always have really, really elaborate banners. They have elaborate chants. They go on the entire game. They do not stop. They have drums. They have the whole deal. It's a really great atmosphere to play in. It's a really wonderful stadium that they have. It's a soccer specific stadium. It's going to be, I think it's going to be electric. And like I said, the stars are going to come out because Messi is there. They flew They flew on Monday and he was on the plane. So all the celebrities know that Lionel Messi is going to be there playing against LA. I'm telling you, get ready to see a list of stars in those luxury boxes on Wednesday night.
This is like when all the celebrities show up to like the Lakers games when, especially when there's a big opponent, and it gets that way. This is going to be something
you know
similar.
what else is going to be kind of cool is that the fans in Europe, those of you I know there are a lot of fans who tune into this podcast from Europe and other parts of the world that are in different time zones, because the game is at 11:30 p.m. Maybe some people around the world in other parts of the world, are going to get to see him. Whereas when they play Eastern time, it's more difficult when it's the middle of the night in Europe.
Right.
People in Europe and other parts of the world in Asia are going to wake up and be able to see Messi play in the morning. So
because now
it should be a fun match.
Right, because now parts of Europe it'll be like at, let's say, like 4:30, 5:30 in the morning, something like that, instead of right in the middle of the night, like at 1 or 2 in the morning. So a little easier, still early, but not slightly more manageable to get up and see that.
Yeah. So it should be a good game. I mean, I think everybody's really pumped and excited. And again, it's a tournament. It's Champions Cup. If they win this round, so they play at LA Wednesday night, then they come home and they play, we'll get into that. They'll play again on Sunday league game. Then they host following Wednesday, they host LAFC in Miami. If they win this round, the winner plays the Vancouver Pumas winner. Now, Vancouver is leading the West this year. Vancouver is the top team in the West this year. They're very, very good. And that would be interesting if they end up having to play Vancouver. That would be a very long road trip. Although I don't know if the semis, we have to look real quick. Do the semis begin single elimination, or is it still double?
I'd have to look at that. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look at their
I think
their rule book
I think it still may be double. It may be the home and away aggregate.
It is still home and away. I just looked it up on their website. It is still
home and away. Okay. Yep. So it's still aggregate 2 legs. Okay.
So what a road trip that would be.
Vancouver, Miami to Vancouver is as long a road trip you can make on this continent. If you look at a map, Miami to Vancouver is corner to corner of North America. So that
you're talking 6.5, 7 hour flight, something like that, give or take.
Yeah, 7 hour. It's a 7 hour flight
because it's 6 to Seattle, so it's probably like 7 to Vancouver.
7 hour flight from Miami to Vancouver. That is a really, really long flight. So that would be interesting if they end up having to play Vancouver. And then Pumas, of course, is a very popular Mexican team that has always been.
That's still a long flight too. That's another long flight too. Not as long as Vancouver, but that's not around the corner either. So either way, it would be a road trip for this team if they have to, if they get past LA.
Yep. So very interesting stuff coming up in the next week.
But like you said, I mean, obviously this doesn't affect the MLS standings, but to see kind of like to gauge kind of where these teams are at, like you said, Vancouver, same amount of points as Miami right now with 13 on the opposite end, and LAFC, like you said, right now it's still very early. They have 9 points. They're 3-3 in league play. But it's still very early. There's still, a good stretch for them can put them right in it in the Western Conference race there. So a talented team and a tough opponent. But let's talk about Alan Obondo. What can this kid potentially do for this team as Miami continues to add talent, young talent, especially when you look at the short term and the long term? These are good moves.
Yeah, Obondo, and people have been talking about him, waiting for this for a long time, who are like buzzing around that he's an 18-year-old. He's 18 years old. He's from Ecuador. By the way, surprise, surprise, his team in Ecuador was Barcelona. So not the Barcelona that the other guys came from, but he also is coming from a Barcelona team. As it happens, it's just a coincidence, but that is the name of the team that he came from Ecuador. This is a guy who has played for the Ecuadorian, national youth team. He's a senior level talent for the national team of Ecuador, Alan Obondo, and he's also was being scouted a lot in Europe. I believe Atletico Madrid in Spain. So he's got some background where, people know of him. He's been on the radar, even though he's only 18. very talented with a big upside. And when we asked Javier Mascherano about him, he said that they really needed reinforcement at that position because they have been using Suarez pretty much without a break. And the man is 38 years old.
Yeah.
Let's not forget El Pistolero. He's 38 years old and he came in with supposedly bad knees. Okay. But he's been playing extended minutes. Unlike Messi's had time off and he's been injured and whatever. Luis Suarez has been playing through and not having that much, backup. So what Mascherano said is they wanted to bring in somebody to be able to spell, Suarez some time so that he can rest now and then because it's a very long season. And they said this is a young guy that can now be under the tutelage of one of the greatest center forwards in the modern game, which is El Pistolero.
Yeah.
They want Luis to take him under his wing and teach him. They said this kid has a lot of talent, but he still has a lot to learn. And who better to learn from than Luis Suarez? So it seems like it's going to be sort of a teacher student type of situation where a 38-year-old and an 18-year-old, 20 years divide those two players, 20 years. So, when Obondo was born, Luis Suarez was already playing, professional.
Literally could be his
he
son.
was already into his career at 20 years old. He was into his career. So they're 20 years apart, but play the same position. The kid has talent. And so this is a signing for now to give them some backup for Suarez, but also, yes, for the future. At 18 years old, they signed him on loan. It's a 1-year loan until the end of the season, but then at the end of the loan, perhaps it becomes a permanent move. So it was not a long-term signing.
Right.
It was a loan, but we will see at the end of the season how that plays out. But that is definitely an interesting signing.
The Jedi and apprentice relationship that Suarez and Obondo are going to have, hopefully, as the season progresses. But like I said before, these are the kind of moves that they have to look at because in the long term, you have to. I mean, I know their immediate goals are to win every tournament possible, win the league, all of that stuff. But you also have to look beyond the horizon with the new stadium coming and Messi's contract running out.
And it's coming, by the way. If you drive by the
skeleton's
airport,
there.
I'll be doing.
Yeah.
Yes, the skeleton is there. It's starting to rise from the ground.
Yeah, but
you can
they
see
need
when
to
you drive by that it's a stadium. Yeah, it's a stadium.
But to finish the point is just that they need to look at who the core, the nucleus of this team is going to be beyond Messi down the road, and to get as many of these young talented players as possible is huge for this team if they can.
Yeah, it's huge to get them now, to get them to learn under these four. I mean, any young player who comes to this team now and is learning under those four, we're talking about, Yannick Bright, Noah Allen, Obondo, Allende, Benja, Cremashi. I mean, these are young players who are under the age of 21, and they are learning from the best of the best. So it's really a good situation where they're going to be teammates right now, but they are already learning so much that is going to serve them well. And by the way, for example, like Benja Cremashi was just during the FIFA break with the U.S. under-20s. He was the captain of the team. He was the captain of the U.S. under-20 team. And then Santi Morales, who's Javier Morales' son, who's 17, 18 years old on this squad also, he was with the U.S. under-18s. In the FIFA break, captain of the team. So Santi Morales was captain of the U.S. under-18s and Benja Cremashi captain of the U.S. under-20s. Why? I'm sure partly because the coaches are figuring these two young men are
playing with.
Working day in and day out with Lionel Messi, Busquets, Suarez and Alba.
Right.
So let's have them bring some of that knowledge and that, that wisdom that they're learning, bring it to the youth. So it's a good signing. I think this is a good signing, the Alan Obondo. We'll see when he gets to play. He was still awaiting his visa, so he was not available yet to be on the field.
Let's have those guys bring some of that residual Messi grace over to us. I mean, it blessed the racket over at the Miami Open, so maybe it'll work for our teams too. That's what they're hoping for. But
Yes, absolutely.
But anyway, we'll thank you for everybody for watching Inside Inter Miami. As always, we'll be back next week to talk a little bit about both the first leg of this tournament. Oh, and we didn't even talk about the next MLS game that they face Toronto on Sunday night. Another Sunday night soccer matchup. It's funny though. That was a little bit of chatter in the press box about how many Sunday night games. I mean, not a surprise. This team, any chance Apple TV and MLS gets to put this team in prime time on their featured matchup of the week, they're going to. They have a few of those. They've had a couple of those already, and here's another one coming on Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday night against Toronto. And again, that's a team. Toronto's a team that has been struggling mightily. They've had a tough time. So this is a winnable, on paper, definitely a winnable game. And by the way, sandwiched between two Champions Cup games with LAFC,
again,
that is a game where they may rotate. It is a game where there may be some roster rotation, and some guys who don't get as many minutes may get to start in that game, which would make sense because that's one of the lower teams in their conference, and they're going to be, with the next game 3 days ahead against LAFC, which will be the deciding game back in South Florida. That is a game that maybe there will be some rotation in the in the lineup for that game.
Yeah, as we spoke about, and Mastrano actually commented about it after the game about how, they got through that first wave of the busy part, had the break, and now here comes another one. They just played the first of 5 games in a 15-day span from the looks of it.
Yeah, it's one every 3 days.
Yeah,
it's one game every 3 days, which is it's a lot. It is a lot, and especially these guys who are in their late 30s already. It's a lot. So I do think on the Toronto game, expect to see some rotation in the roster for that game. That would be my guess. I don't know, but that would be my guess.
It's a very good guess because we've seen it already. We've seen how they're trying to balance that. I think the interesting one is Suarez for sure, because that was another thing there was some chatter about, was like, when does he get a break? Because everybody's kind of on edge, like he's hanging in there, he's lasting, he's still excelling, he's doing everything, but you don't want to also push this guy too hard.
Yeah, I don't want to push him too
where
far.
He's at.
Exactly.
But it seems like it's fine. Right.
Yeah.
So let's see how they handle it. We'll be back, like I said, we'll be back next week again on YouTube, MiamiHerald.com. We'll talk about both of those games, and we'll look ahead to where the team stands going into the second leg, which, as Michelle said, is the following Wednesday, 8:00 start, I believe, for the home side of that.
Yes, 8:00. Mm-hmm.
8:00 start.
Yep, 8:00 we'll be back next Wednesday.
Yep. So once again, everybody, thank you for watching Inside Inter Miami. For Michelle Kaufman, I'm Andre Fernandez. We'll talk to you next week.